So this beer is called Drood. This is an interesting story on this beer. We actually brewed this beer back in 2016, which is 4 years ago. We were the challenge was to try to get higher than 35 Plato back then. We were like, let's make an original gravity really high, meaning like the sugar that we start with is very, very high. And we had only ever gotten as high as about 32 Plato at that point, which is a challenging thing to do, but we wanted to get a little higher. And so we brewed the beer. This beer itself it's a Belgian-Style Imperial Stout, and its intent was to be extremely high in alcohol by volume and original gravity. And so we brewed the beer. None of the instruments that we had could actually tell what the original gravity was. So we were like, I don't know what we got, but it's definitely higher than anything we can read. So we fermented the beer with a blend of a Trappist yeast strain, one that would be used in one of the Trappist abbeys for, say, Belgian triple or Belgian quad. So Belgian style. We also added wild yeast from our first foeder, which is a blend of wild sort of Saccharomyces, which is brewer's yeast, and wild Brettanomyces yeast strains. After fermentation, we actually put this beer in rum barrels for a year that were from Jamaica. And then we put it in second use bourbon barrels for 2 more years. So it's 12 months in Jamaican rum barrels, 24 months in used second use bourbon barrels that were Four Roses bourbon barrels. And so then after that, we tasted it. It tasted like really, really nicely, extremely complex in a way that we'd never really experienced before. But this time we then had instruments to be able to read what this beer was. And it turns out this beer is 14.7% alcohol by volume. So we nailed that. And then it turned out that we were over 45 Plato original gravity, which is considerably higher than we thought we could even do. So Drood, we actually decided, because of how nicely it tasted out of the barrel, to pour this beer still. So you'll notice when you're pouring it that there's really no carbonation. We wanted this beer to be as still as possible. We suggest drinking it, just warmer than chilled, but not necessarily room temperature. And when I drink it, I get like tons of brown sugar characteristics, a lot of sort of like chocolate covered espresso bean, oaky vanillin notes from both of those 2 barrels that we use. And even like this chocolate covered raspberry note, this really interesting like fruit characteristic that comes out of it. Full rich mouthfeel, tons of sort of like brownie chocolate characteristics. I'm a big fan of Charles Dickens novels, and the last novel that he wrote, which actually was an incomplete novel, is called The Mystery of Edwin Drood. And the joke there for me was, Charles Dickens wasn't able to finish that novel because he passed away. And I always kind of joked when we were making this beer, like, it's never going to finish. Like, I'm going to die before this beer finishes because of how big it was and how difficult the fermentation was. So we called this beer Drood, sort of, to jokingly, think back on how much work it took to create this beer. One that I think we're all really, really extremely proud of, something that we didn't even really know technically that we could do. And now we get to enjoy it. Cheers.